All right. Welcome to the Capacity Grants Community of Practice. My name is Liz Gomez, and I'm a director with the Sacramento County Office of Education with the Capacity Grants Program. I don't know about you, but I love some Dolly. I'm sharing that Dolly is a frequent karaoke choice for me. So I love some Jolene. More of a 9 to 5 gal, but also love some Jolene. So hope y'all enjoyed that song to kind of welcome us into the space. For our May Community of Practice, we are continuing on our theme of Tier 1 and universal supports, and we have the absolute privilege of hearing from Jill Barnes from Napa today to talk a little bit about that topic. Through engaging in incredibly meaningful and intentional adult SEL work, Napa has reshaped their county office as well as the LEAs in their county. Adrienne Marie Brown says, "Small is good, small is all. The large is a reflection of the small." Let's open ourselves up to this idea today that practicing adult SEL in some of our smaller interactions and spaces within our communities and our teams will then be a good prerequisite to the systems change that we're all working on statewide. Next slide, please. Each month, we like to ground in our why. What is it that we're doing here in these shared spaces? So we envision a future where every child and youth in California is celebrated, nurtured, and supported by caring adults at home and at school. And we believe that coming together monthly in these community of practice peer learning spaces will bring us closer towards that shared vision. We have a couple of outcomes here that I'll go over as well. So our 3 outcomes are increasing capacity, infrastructure, and partnerships, expanding access to behavioral health services in schools or school-linked settings, and building collaborative infrastructure. Next slide. All right, so our agenda for today, we're in the welcome, so that's where we're at right now. Then I'll have the privilege of handing over our inclusive welcome to the Santa Clara team, so Caressa and Tanya. We will hear from Napa COE on adult SEL, and then we'll have a chance to reflect on what we learned and process that and how that applies to our work. We'll get some feedback from you, and then we'll close out. Some housekeeping, if you could please update your name to include your County Office of Education. So you can see in my name, I put SAC COE because there's so many SCOEs that I think it could be helpful to know which S I'm from. This is a space for county offices of education, so this is a helpful way for us to know where everyone's coming from. So if you are not with the county office of education, we'll kindly ask you to exit the space. Our objectives for today are to reflect on the work to date and envision next steps to enhance school-linked behavioral health services. We'll empower community voices and engage in activities to foster collaboration and learning. And then finally, you'll help provide insight on TA and ways to support administration of the grant program. Next slide. Okay, so as I mentioned in the intro to Jill's presentation, we are in theme 2, which is around Tier 1 and universal supports. These themes are a way to ground us in some of the priority areas that are important across building capacity for school-linked behavioral health services. So in May through August, we will be supporting conversation around Tier 1 universal supports. And some of the things that are coming up, including communities of practice during this time period, we are doing a memo on Tier 1 terminology. And then we'll have a Mental Health 101 Train the Trainer for all COEs and LEAs in June. Next slide. Okay, so with that, that brings us to our inclusive welcome. And as a reminder, these inclusive welcomes are a way for us to practice these SEL signature practices that we hope to do in different team meetings and professional learning spaces. And so with that, I will go ahead and pass the mic to our Santa Clara team to lead our inclusive welcome.
Thank you, Liz. Good afternoon, everyone. It's such a privilege to lead our community in a connection carousel for our inclusive welcome today. So we want to ground ourselves in purpose, connection, and shared responsibility. So I want folks to take a look at this slide, and for about a minute, Let's go ahead and silently reflect individually on the prompt, which is think of a moment, recent or past, when this work made a meaningful difference. What happened and why did it matter? And please write one sentence capturing the impact. The next thing I'm going to invite folks to do is to go ahead and on a scale of 1 to 5, how often are you currently seeing the impact of this work in your system? With 1, rarely seeing the impact, and 5, seeing it clearly and often. And if you could share that in the chat so others could also see. Loving the answers in the chat. We have several 5s, some 3s, a couple of 4s. There's a 2 in there, more 4s. Awesome. Next slide, please. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into breakout rooms. Our colleague Emily will be preparing those rooms to open very shortly. But I invite folks in their groups of about 3 to 4 to reflect and respond to the prompts below. The first one is, what is one challenge or barrier making this work harder right now? And then next prompt is, what is one strategy, mindset, or partnership helping you move forward? We will be in our small groups of about 3 and 4 in the breakout rooms for about 4 minutes. And so we invite you to be present and to be in community with the folks in your rooms. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a lovely time in your discussion rooms. I sure had a lovely time in mine. Special shout out to Shannon and Peter for that great conversation. So as we close our inclusive welcome today, I invite folks to add in the chat, what's one word or phrase you've heard across the room? Let's do a quick waterfall. Don't press enter just yet. Gonna wait like a few seconds. And I think folks would have already typed in their one word or phrase, and go ahead and press enter. Oh my, communication, partnership, collaboration, building capacity, sharing information across partners, cuts, support, partnership, relationship building, the power of partnership. I love all of these responses. Thank you, friends, for joining us in this inclusive welcome. And just as a reminder, as we enter today's conversation, let's hold both the impact we're striving for and the complexity we're navigating together. And with that, I will go ahead and pass it back to Patrick.
Thanks so much, Caressa. What a beautiful, inclusive welcome. It felt so nice. I love grounding in purpose and connection. Next slide, please. Great. So just want to officially announce our new memo. We're hoping to do one of these for every COP. And this one was based on requests from a lot of you around continued sort of going into the weeds for Anaheim Elementary School District. They presented for us at our COP back in March. And they were kind enough to meet again and really dig into the wellness coach role and the PPS school counselor role within their school district and really dig into how does supervision look? How does documentation look? What does a day in the life look like for these two roles? So please check out the memo, look at it. And also, just to say, we would love feedback as well. We really are hoping that these memos are additive out there and really supporting everyone and the things and the questions that you're all sitting with. So please feel free to reach out to us and also give us feedback if there's pieces that you would love to see more of or less of or change up in some way. So excited to release this memo and so excited to hear what folks think of this memo. Hopefully it's supportive. Next slide, please. All right, great. So we are so excited today to have our presenter, Napa County Office of Education, presenter on adult SEL, as Liz was saying, in alignment with our theme too. Next slide, please. And Jill Barnes, the phenomenal Jill Barnes, will be our presenter today. For those of you who may not know Jill Barnes, she's the Director of Mental Health and Professional Learning at Napa County Office of Education. I feel like she is truly an expert and statewide leader around all things SEL, school-based behavioral health services, certified wellness coaches, and the list truly goes on and on and on. There's so much expertise that she holds. She's also one of our exceptional regional leads in capacity grants. And on Friday, I know she's bringing Dr. Whitson, the executive director from California Association for School Counselors, to the regional meeting on Friday, which I also think is so awesome and so exciting. On a personal note, I'll share that Jill's one of those rare individuals in this work who continually inspire me and teach me something new every time I hear her speak. Despite having done this work for 12 years, I feel like Jill just reminds me over and over again that there's still more to learn and more to like learn about how to live into this work. I feel like Jill doesn't just know this work, but she lives it and breathes it. When she did the walkthrough of her presentation a couple weeks ago, I felt more grounded and present after that after that walkthrough of that presentation. So I'm just so excited for all of you to get to see her presentation and get to learn from her wisdom. So I will hand it off to you, Jill.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for that, Patrick, that amazing introduction. And thank you to everyone for those hearts. That means more than you know. I think that I heart back to all of you is what I will say. Send my heart right back to you. And I think if I hold it here long enough, it would just start to create hearts. There you go. There are the hearts. Well, I'm excited to share with you today. I know that we always have limited time together on these. So first and foremost, I just want to say, please don't ever hesitate to reach out. I'm sometimes a little behind in my email, like I'm sure all of you, but I really, partnership is the word I chose and put in the chat, and it absolutely is the way to get this work done. There's just no other way. I can text Shannon or Matt or, Scott, Kita, all my friends here. I can't say them all, but, I can text them and be like, what's happening? What did they just say? What does that mean? I don't understand. And we work on stuff together. So I'm really excited to be in the room with you today. I'm going to share a little bit today about how we've integrated adult wellness into our agency. My role did not exist 5 years ago. It came out of our strategic planning. And so, there's not very many mental health and professional learning directors that I've met. So it's become a real priority for us. And I'm just going to share with you how that came to be and provide some resources on how you might look at this in your own agency. Came out of CalHOPE. We had 3 priority outcomes with CalHOPE, one being centered on adult well-being, especially for those that are serving youth directly. And it came from this Collaborating Districts initiative. Patrick's going to put the link to that in the chat. This was a 10-year study from 2011 to 2021. And they looked at multiple districts and they did these case studies of large urban districts. Sacramento was one. MyC is in this report and has some videos. But they came up with 6 elements that were required for SEL sustainability. And one of them is promoting adult SEL. And when you listen to people from this study talk about the work that they were doing, they highlight You can't skip over the adults. We have to attend to adults in the system. So I think we all know this, but it's a great resource. If you are building this work internally and you need reference points, that's a really great research piece to point to. So this is our CalHOPE timeline. And I just wanted to point out that in 3 consecutive years, we really focused on the integration of adult wellness through a countywide community of practice at which we always had about 80 participants. And people are really invested in their own well-being, and it was a monthly session. So I know many others did that, and it worked really well. So how do we do it in a sustainable way? I want to also point out that if you're looking for resources to have policy-based conversation at your agency, this is another one. This is the Gallup State of the Global Workplace Report. Gallup does an annual report, and this is the 2026 one. And they look at workplace well-being. In the report, which is 250 pages long, there's a whole little section on emotional wellness in the workplace, and it specifically talks about it on a global scale. There are generalizations, but there's a specific section of the report for the United States and Canada. And just to point out a few of the highlights from that emerged is that our stress, our anger at work, and these are the questions they asked. Do you experience the following feelings a lot of the day? Yesterday, how about anger? Daily sadness, same question about sadness, question about loneliness. And if you look into the data, you'll see that we may have leveled out over the past 3 years or even come down a notch or two. And workplace wellness overall in the past 3 years declined, but this year, for the first time, increased. And each percentage point, I believe they said, is 21 million workers across the globe. So this is not small numbers. And basically what it comes down to is we have seen a lower in workplace stress, anger, loneliness. However, overall, we are still not reaching the pre-pandemic baseline levels. So it's still of importance to address these things from a systemic level. And I encourage you to get into that. So before I show you what we did here at NCOE, I'm curious, what about your wellness programming at your agency is a strength? It might be the way you train managers. It might be the way you onboard people. It might be your employee assistance program. I'd like you to grab the Mentimeter, and I'm going to stay with me. I'm going to switch screens for just a second. I'm going to go here. Now you can grab it still. Over there's a QR code. You can also go to menti.com and put in that 8-digit code. And I'm going to ask that you respond. And I'm going to exit out of this. Oh, there we go. It's coming up. I'm not nearly patient enough most of the time. Work flex location. Yeah, that makes a big difference. Calm. Team members supporting and communicating with each other. Workplace culture is such an important piece of people's ability to see themselves as successful in their environment. Supportive administration, flexible-ish hours, hybrid works, yep. Supervisory encouragement, culture, supported by cabinet leadership. Weekly goat yoga. Oh, I want to work there. If someone says puppy yoga, I'm going to lose my mind. Affinity groups. The CEDI app. Yep. That's another tool. Wellness committee with wellness events, professional development, debrief and supportive team. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and advance to the next slide and ask the next question, which is, what is one strength of your agency's staff? Or sorry, not strength. I meant to say, what is one area of growth? This is what happens when you're doing too many things at once. So what's an area of growth that you could call out? Mm. Leadership retreat. Consistency. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that department onboarding is different department to department. Braving versus back channeling communication. Yep. Brene Brown has amazing work around this. Deliberate structured debrief following crises. Continued support around weaving in equity into the day-to-day work we do. Yes. Kind of touches on the T-cell work with Castle. How do we integrate equity into what we're doing rather than make it an add-on? How do we integrate wellness into what we're doing rather than making it an add-on? Saturdays and Sundays. Do we want a 3-day weekend? Is that the inference there? Having a dedicated department focused on student and staff wellness, including strong leadership that values and backs those things. Mm-hmm. More stress the system becomes, the less it focuses on stress and wellness. Yeah, that can be true. I'm going to invite you to continue responding to that. And I'm going to share with you how we have addressed some of those concerns. There's really 4 building blocks to what we've instituted at NCOE, starting with our strategic plan, having a delivery mechanism for the work, flexible resources to fund it, and continuous improvement practices to keep it moving forward. Our strategic plan was developed in 2020. It was 2021 to 2024 was really its time frame, and we're actually in new strategic planning right now. But you can see that 2 of the 4 areas are my job: professional learning and mental health and wellness. What this does is creates policy. It creates that bedrock for me to have the conversation at cabinet or at Ed Services and say, this is something we've all agreed to. We're committed to this. If you don't have a reference point like this in policy in your agency, it would be a great starting point. Where you are in your department work, I've seen departments start this work and share it out, and it becomes like this pilot, and suddenly it's being looked at broader agency-wide. So work within your locus of control, but also if you can develop policy that is a reference point for you when you are then advocating for these things to strengthen this for adults in your system, you have that as a reference point, a third point. When we had that strategic plan implemented, we had work groups, and in the work groups, they were cross-departmental. People had a lot of ideas and they were great, but you have to really focus in all of those ideas to something that's meaningful, user-friendly, and flexible enough to be responsive to the changes that are going to happen. And so I actually created tiered resources like we would for an MTSS tiered certain like supports and interventions on a school site with youth, and have in place universal things like the Calm app. I saw that come up in areas of strength. We have wellness sessions that are embedded into our professional learning, and I'll talk about that delivery mechanism next. We have strategic things like we started small group coaching this year with an LMFT that was contracted to come out and do 2 separate cohorts of essentially a type of group process where we focused on emotional resilience and burnout. And so we did those 2, and it was limited to under 12 participants. I believe we kept it at about 10 each cohort. We also have those employee assistance programs where people can connect to resources and psychoeducation, and we promote those all the time, including telehealth resources. And then moving into more intensified, hey, I need some more long-term services. We have care coordination through Care Solace, and I've actually offered counseling, direct counseling on our site and to programs in response to traumatic events and natural disasters, which is part of our legislative charge for our districts. But it's important to really attend to what you can offer in the moment that's going to be helpful. So we organize those resources so that if people have questions, if managers are supporting, offering direct support to their staff, they can continually have a reference point for these are the resources. Let's take a look at these. What might help you the most right now? And the delivery mechanism for these wellness resources is often our professional learning as well. It's already embedded into what we're doing. We have 2 all-staff professional learning days, and we have an all-day management training day each year. So to carve out a whole thread of sessions for mental health and wellness that are all staff days, that gives 6 hours of professional learning and development from wellness professionals across the year for all staff. And then when we have our management training, it is embedded into our management training as not only a practice like we do a connector, and we model what it looks like to integrate wellness into what you're doing and interactive learning, all of those things that we like to do to attend to adult well-being and learning theory. But we also are highlighting kind of turnkey tools. I've done burnout tools for managers from the CALM materials, which are fantastic. I've worked with the Gallup data before. We've done feedback. We've done burnout resources from other research-based programs. So I highly recommend if you don't have a structure that is scalable and replicable for your agency to deliver professional learning or deliver this content, it was much harder to do this in the beginning. We would have a series here or a series there or something here people could opt into until we really established these foundational required professional learning days. And then on top of it, strategic resources like small group coaching or maybe an optional wellness series. But it really provides a structure for all of these pieces to be delivered to adults. And by the way, we feed them. It really makes a difference. So how do you make this happen resources wise? This is the challenge for all of us right now. We're coming to the end of the Educator Effectiveness Block Grant. We've been using that. What we've done now is create a more flexible spending or like structure for the fees of what we have, which is some staffing, contracts, materials, supplies. And we have 300-ish people that participate in these activities across the agency. We have several departments that are large. And so in order to fund some of this work, we are doing a prorated percentage and charging the departments for the staff that are attending the required professional learning. So it's not such a large ask of anyone because we're breaking it up across departments within the agency. And that's not funding us 100%, but that's funding us a good portion. And that way they have co-ownership. They have kind of some skin in the game. They develop the content with us. This is not something that happens to them. This is something that we ask, what do your staff need in terms of wellness right now? And they are funding it. So it's almost like we're their contracted staff putting some of these pieces together to support their well-being. There's also little pots of money that you can find. SEL for California has annual mini grants. We write a grant to the North Bay School Insurance Authority each year. We're part of a consortium of 4 agencies, and they provide our insurance. They're our EAP program. And we write a mini grant, and that's funded our small group coaching this year. It's funded a few things for mental health awareness this year. And it makes a big difference to people. We brought in a fresh juice truck. It's a woman-owned, and she's a beautiful community member, woman-owned business, and she came out and made fresh juice for all of our staff this month as part of mental health awareness. We have a partnership with Pause for Healing, which is emotional support animals, and they're no cost to us. And they come out and they support our staff. So think about what are those little places you can find a little bit of funding or partnerships community-wide that, and the dogs, oh my gosh, there was a Chihuahua in a car, is all I'll say. So cute. Kita can tell you more. It was fantastic. And then my favorite, Henley, the golden retriever, was here. So I highly recommend you look at things like that that make a big difference and don't have to be a big lift. Also, as we all know, the CYBHI money is unrestricted, so you could utilize some of that for your adult wellness as well. This is our continuous improvement. So the last benchmark piece is our continuous improvement. And we do an annual staff survey and we do a stock survey after every single professional learning event specific to that experience. So the staff survey data, this is from not last year, but the year before, and it shows the impact of professional learning. 77% strongly agreeing, and COE makes professional learning a priority. So we can see we're moving in the right direction with our strategic plan, and that's something we want to sustain. You can see also the data is an important marker for that ongoing conversation. If we got back data that said, "Nah, we don't care. It's fine. It's maybe it's a good 97% of people said it's a good use of their time. That's something to have a continued investment in. So it also helps for that conversation with leadership around how do we make this happen? So we review this data with all of our agency. We do town halls. We have a lot of representation and feedback for the development and the ongoing development of this work and the review of data around it. So I just want to put all of that into, we all are familiar with continuous improvement practices. Those are deeply embedded into this for us. A real quick sideline, the adult SEL community of practice that we did with Educators Thriving, one of our districts did with their mini grant. So they took the model we created and they implemented it in their district. Over 30% of their whole entire staff participated, like all of their teachers, over 30% participated. It was an opt-in in the evening. They did these 3 sessions and they really enjoyed the process of them. You can see some feedback from the staff members. So people are responsive, as we know, to the value of this work and what it provides them because it makes them feel seen and heard and their impact matters. So their wellness matters. This is a link to our resources. If you click on this, and Patrick has my slides and we'll share them out. If you click on this, it takes you to our NCOE and Educators Thriving website. They've been a fantastic partner. If you're looking for someone to do the lift of the content and the facilitation, they've been a really fantastic partner for us. And we brought them in for our professional learning days as well to do different sessions. And they've developed sessions with us based on our need. So I just want to put that forward in terms of the group. And then this is, when you want people to come back to your materials and you want there to be a reference point, you have to have a place. So this is just our intranet SharePoint. However you do that, it's really important to have all of those resources in one place so that people can find it. It's user friendly and you are communicating about it or able to communicate about it at those opportunities where you have everyone in front of you. All right, that was a lot of information. So I'm just going to open it up for Q&A.
Actually, Jill, we will get to the Q&A after our break, and I'm sure folks are going to be so excited to be in that space with you. So again, thank you so much for walking us through the innovative work of integrating adult well-being in Napa COE. And for me, what really stood out is NCOE's strategic and tiered approach to embedding adult wellness in your professional learning series. Thank you for sharing, so many ideas on how we can replicate this work in our own COEs. That was such a great presentation, and thank you again for your leadership in this space. And before we move into a much-needed break, I would like to thank our DHCS and Carillon partners for joining us today. And this is your friendly reminder to hop off before we go into our peer learning breakout rooms. And before we go into that 5-minute break, I wanted to provide folks with a bit of framing for our peer learning breakout rooms. I always look forward to these peer learning spaces section of the COP because it allows us to come together to discuss the successes and the challenges we're finding within the school-based behavioral work that we're all doing. I also wanted to point out that while the Capacity Grants team can't directly provide guidance about a particular topic, we're more than happy to share resources and best practices that we've come across or gathered in the field. I also wanted to remind the community of something we started early this year and are continuing in this month's COP. That's splitting the breakout rooms so you can dig into two separate topics if you'd like. There's also the option of staying in the same room the whole time, if this is what you'd like to do. This comes directly from feedback we've received from all of you about what would be most supportive to you. One thing to remember is that you will not return to the main room after you're done with your first breakout room. Instead, there will be some transition time, about 3 minutes, to choose to either stay in that breakout room that you're currently in or move to another breakout room. Each breakout session will be about 20 minutes long. However, during the second breakout session, you'll have an additional 5 minutes at the end to fill out our feedback form. During the break, you will have the breakout room, the discussion list listed, so you can reference that and think about where you would like to go after the break. All right, and with that, we will now have our break. We hope you enjoy the sounds of Into the Sun by BTS, shared by Mary from DHCS. That whistling action at the end right there. Perfect ending to the song. Welcome back, folks. We hope you enjoyed your break. We are now in the peer learning discussion portion of our community of practice. And to briefly review, we will have 5 breakout rooms today. And the 6th one is going to be our main room, which is the Q&A with the presenter. We will have a room for ORP, another room for EHR vendors. Our 3rd room is going to be the small and rural COE, working the topic specifically revolving around working with managed care plans. We will have a room that will discuss adult SEL, another room for Tier 1 fee schedule and universal screeners. And if you are interested in having another breakout room for a smaller meeting, you could let us know and we can go ahead and build or open that breakout room for you. As a reminder, we are splitting the breakout rooms so folks can dig into 2 separate topics, or you can choose to stay in the main room, in your original room the whole time. If you do that, you will not need to come back to the main room after you're done with your first breakout room. Instead, you will have about 3 minutes to transition to either stay in that breakout room you're in or to move to another breakout room, with each session lasting about 20 minutes long. The second session with an additional 5 minutes so folks can have time, dedicated time to answer our feedback survey. As with all of our breakout rooms, we will have a facilitator to guide and document the discussion. And following today's meeting, a summary of the breakout room discussions will be posted to the Capacity Grants website to support continued peer learning and networking. And when we come back, we will ask each room to share out using Zoom chat. So as you discuss, we'd like you to consider if there's a nugget of learning you would like to share with a larger group, which we will ask you to drop in the main room chat. Also, during the last 5 minutes of your room, as I said earlier, your breakout room facilitator will ask you to go ahead and fill out that feedback form, which is really important. It helps us improve our practice and be more supportive to you. As a reminder, the Q&A with the presenter will remain in the main room, and we'll start in about 2 minutes after we're able to get everyone situated into the breakout rooms. So in a moment, our colleague Emily will be launching those rooms. These rooms are self-select, so go ahead and select the room that you are most interested in. If you're having a challenge with joining any of the rooms or some technical difficulties, just stay in the main room and let us know, and we will be happy to assist you. And with that, we will now launch the breakout rooms. I hope everyone enjoys their conversation. We'll see you in a bit.
Well, it looks like people are finding their way around the breakout rooms. Again, if anyone needs any help, let us know, and our team can help you navigate to your breakout room of choice. If you decide to stay in here with us, we'll be having Q&A with our lovely Jill Barnes from Napa County Office of Education.
Thanks, I'm here if anyone has a question. If not, we can all chill. It's fine by me.
That's right. I think they've had a chance to find their rooms. What do you think, Jill?
Probably, yeah.
All right. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for just an amazing overview of the work you do up there in Napa County and your commitment to social emotional learning. It is so beautiful in that it really seems like such a collaborative, welcoming culture that has moved to that kind of shared vision and agreement. I mean, that's what I feel when when you describe it. Is that accurate? Does it feel that palpable to you while you're in it?
It does. I think that people feel a part of when you are so involved in the development of a strategic plan, the implementation, your feedback is continuously being sought, changes are being put into place based on your feedback. It does feel that your presence and your involvement in the agency really matters because it does. The challenge with that for all of us, right, David, is that we're also trying to do a job over here. So when you ask for that type of commitment to have people involved in strategic planning or involved in implementation of those pieces, it has to be co-created and co-implemented with, it can't just be a director doing stuff,
Right.
right? So it is a consistent, it's a mindset shift for
Hmm.
people. And it consistently does create a space for people to ask, how much can I give to
Hmm.
this work and how much, we were very ambitious in our strategic plan. And so we look at it 4 years later and we're like, hey, we got to one of the nine things that we thought we would get to. So that's informing our second round here.
When you describe it, I would imagine, or let me frame it this way. What was the role of your board in that development, and how was the role of your superintendent? I think those things are obviously part of the structure that has supported that development.
So our executive leadership was all part of the strategic plan development. We have a steering committee, and we did this the first round, and we're doing it the second round. We have a steering committee, which includes executive leadership and board members. And so there's an opportunity for that guidance, that voice in the room when we're making these decisions and selecting kind of where we're going to put our energy and what that language sounds like. And then additionally, board members or executive leadership or across the agency, all levels of staff, not just management staff, were part of priority committees. So there was a strategic priority committee for each one of those four priorities. And I got to lead two of them. That's my job title. So that is ongoing. They met for 3 years. So for the implementation of the work where you're developing the ideas, you can have a strategic priority, you can have a vision, a mission statement, a priority with goals, and even measures in terms of this is how we know we are doing it well. But you have to have long-term development of the actions that are going to take place, work groups that are involved in that, work groups that come back to the committee and share out their current products, and that move through things that you've never done before as a system.
Yeah, well said. I appreciate that. I think it's a lot of moving parts and the essential parts of having cohesion and collaboration and support at all levels. So, well, thank you for answering that question for myself. I'll pause and invite our colleagues, please. I have more to ask Jill, but I'm going to pause because I know she and I can talk all afternoon. But would anyone like to ask Jill a question or a comment? All right. Well, I guess I have another question then for you. Um, Reflecting back upon that, I know that all our county offices are in different stages of leadership, board dynamics, and local and state politics around it. Um, it appears that your cohesion is very consistent and well developed right now. What would you say, what would be some of your advice to districts or county offices, I should say, that are kind of in this redevelopment or rebuilding phase or where there isn't the cohesion? What would be some suggestions on your experience in this space to help support uh, county offices moving towards developing more social emotional learning as part of their strategic plan?
One of the key parts of strategic planning is, of course, gathering feedback from all of your partners. So your staff being one of those groups, your staff, your students, your parents and families, and your community. So, what does it look like to gather that feedback? We've done, with this round, we've done focus groups. We've done, I think, almost 20 focus groups. We've had community forums. We have a survey that's gone out and been accessible to anyone in the community. And when you gather that feedback, you are absolutely going to, I would love to see the county where no adult says, "Hey, I'm good. I don't need any support." You're going to see that if you have data where your community that you serve is literally saying, this is what we need, including your staff, it's hard to have a conversation that then cuts that out.
Mhm.
So I would say that's an essential part of the process for strategic planning and
Mhm.
most whether you're going with a contractor or you're doing this internally, I think most processes involve that for COEs.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's nice. Oh, here's a question Caitlin's saying. I was going to ask a similar question. What is your guidance on where to start? And any guidance for those COEs who may not be in a position to do such robust strategic planning process, but would like to strengthen adult SEL in their county?
I think there's two places you could start, Caitlin. That's a great question. One would be, and I kind of mentioned it during the presentation, would be with departments. Often you have departments that are willing to be or that are already working on this, kind of a model department. They are thinking about wellness, they're communicating about it, they have a leader that's prioritized this. You can see it in the way that they meet together as a department, how they set priorities. You can see it in their work culture and their team dynamic. If you can really work with one department, or if it's your department and you have authority with that, what is it that you can do that would then create the pieces of conversation you need to bring agency wide? You're really focusing on supporting your staff, your team, your department, and you're going to have benefit from that no matter what the end point is. The other thing I would say is often, and we heard this really often for the first 3 years, we asked in our staff survey, our annual survey, what's your awareness of the wellness resources here at NCOE? And sometimes it's literally about awareness. So you have the Calm app. I know that one of my goals for the first 2 years in this role was around a specific level of subscription and activation of Calm subscribers across the agency, and they have a benchmark, an industry benchmark of they require about like 48%, if I remember. Calm will say that. And it was my job to really kind of promote the access to the benefit. So in all the professional learning or in all of the department meetings I'm going to, or whatever I'm doing, I am bringing my little flyers with the Calm activation QR code and saying, who can I help get enrolled in Calm today? And then you can look and you can see your activation, your usage. You can see what people are utilizing in terms of importance when they're utilizing it. Are we accessing meditation, or is this sleep stories, or is this music? Like, what do people need? What are they using it for? And you get a lot of metrics once you get people into something like that. So it would be another entry point to really just raise awareness and bring that awareness into all of your ongoing communication. I had a newsletter I was doing for a couple of years. I stopped the newsletter because people understand all the resources, and every once in a while I'll send out things to all company. But that was really important.
That's great. Yeah, I think that's really important, right? Nurturing what you want to grow
Mhm.
and having that. Yeah, during your presentation, I was reflecting back on our county. We've had, some shifts and some changes, and I think at different stages we've had an emphasis on social emotional learning and some access to supports. But sometimes that gets lost in leadership translation or transitions, and I think that's pretty common. Uh,
Mhm.
so I love your example of nurturing it because if it becomes the fabric of the culture, then the leadership, as it shifts and changes, they'll be more likely to step in and continue it because it's already so palpable and part of their culture. What would be some ideas and areas that you would suggest areas of, kind of getting some additional strategies or ways to like elevate it? Like if you were going to, if you had, and let me rephrase it this way, if you had that magic brushstroke, what would you like to see the next phase of Napa moving into enhancing your existing program as you re-enter into next 4-year cycle?
Yeah, I think that there's a question I have for you too, David. And I'll say my question so I don't forget it, and then I'll address what your question was. My question would be to you is through those transitions, where have you seen the most stability in terms of people addressing adult wellness? Are there certain departments or programs that, regardless of the leadership, regardless of transitions in staff or planning or priorities, have they consistently made it something of importance for their staff? We have one department who, prior to our strategic plan or alongside it, really developed a handbook.
Mhm.
And because they're a student serving department, it was really important for them to make sure that what they were trying to encourage and train and ensure was happening for youth from the adult perspective was also happening for the adults in the system. So some programs it speaks to more easily, and regardless of policy or transition, they just kind of make their own policy around it. And that's definitely an opportunity for growth, I think, in many places. So you asked what I would see, like if I had my druthers, what would be next? I think that there's a lot of legislature coming up around digital healthy habits. We've seen some age limits come, some more legal restrictions around social media. I think there are intersecting topics when it comes to adult wellness. And if we are on our devices scrolling at night, trying to bring ourselves down from this overstimulation all day long, um, we are not the model for our youth that we need to be. So what are the healthy digital habits, especially when AI, is coming more, it's in the Gallup report as well. It talks about how AI is influencing wellness and it's incredibly difficult for managers as well. And implementation for an agency, the quality of implementation for AI, whether it's intentional, does have a significant impact on employee wellness. Um, as we get going with AI, am I expected to do more because it's supposed to increase my productivity when I'm already feeling burned out and don't have the emotional resilience or the proactive skills with my health, whether it's physically, emotionally, or socially, to rebound any further than I'm already rebounding? And, I realize I'm saying this in May, right? When we're all kind of like the rubber band stretched to the limit. So, how do we look at these intersecting topics with wellness and bring some real, clear, data-based, shared understanding around the impact of our choices as adults and what it means for our well-being? Because I can offer counseling, small group counseling, individual counseling. I can promote calm from here to eternity. But if someone is not paying attention to the behaviors that they have control over in their life, I can't manage that for them.
Right. But I think you touched on something that's essential. How do we create working conditions that are not overly tasked or stressed? Because definitely the pressure to complete more, do more, lean into AI to increase your performance or your level of efficiency does come at a level of exhaustion. And in our current modern world, we spend hours on these screens. And then, you go home and then, yeah, to Caitlin, thank you for being so honest, guilty of, the back on screens in the evenings. I mean, we all do it because we become overly stimulated and addicted, plus our whole world becomes that way. So yeah, I love it. I love the conversation as you framed it. I think that's the next conversation we need to have in our workspace. How do we build places to say enough? Be in community. Get off your screen. All right, Danielle, you're going to add to the conversation. Bring your voice.
I'm glad. I always forget to lower hand. I'm glad it does it by itself now. Um, you touched on how you measured change, like on the system level. Here's our strategic plan. Here's the ones we can check off. And accepting that a change process is, especially one that is going to last, is by nature slow. And then also you talked about evaluation.
Mhm.
Um, and getting feedback on the satisfaction of the staff. And I was just wondering a little, those both intrigued me because I'm thinking about the pace of change too. And what other measures, or how do you measure it? Both formal, if you have any, because maybe there isn't any more formal measurement, but also how do you assess whether the climate feels different? Maybe the survey is everything, but I just wondered, just because I have noticed situations where a change process, not this current one, a change process was underway and people were not able to generalize it. So they might create the environment in, I don't know, in some classrooms and not others, or school wide, but not after school. I'm just wondering what you have seen and what your strategies are around assessment and evaluation, both formal and informal. So you know that we're getting there.
A great question, Danelle. And it's really, the survey is informative. So the staff survey is once per year and it is on all four of the strategic priorities. And we leave that open for a period of weeks. We do, sessions at each one of our sites that have laptops set up so people can complete it. We ask people to put it into their department meetings. We like to get to a certain percentage of completion on that survey, but we also ask in the moment survey after every single professional learning event. And what I'll tell you is that people, you get often in the beginning, you get feedback from people that are on either end of the spectrum. They either loved it or they hated it. So we got a lot of feedback that was really specific to individual experiences. And then as it continued, and we take that feedback into cabinet, take it into ed services, we talk it through. There was often a director who had some context for things, and often it had to do with like neurodiversity or very simple accessibility needs, things that you don't always think about in terms of doing something agency wide that you grow better at. So we would, it's also how you engage with the data when you've got it. And then it's how people engage with the survey requests too. It's their human behavior. So they vote with their feet. They're coming to the professional learning events. Yes, they're required for them, but they could call in sick. We all have non-contract time. If they really felt it was a terrible use of their time, they would probably not come. It's on a Friday. It'd be easy to just make it a 3-day weekend. That is not what our attendance looks like. We have high attendance, high engagement, people asking for sessions to be extended and for people to ask for or asking for extended days. So you definitely see it with their participation and their engagement, not only their engagement in providing you that feedback as data, but their engagement in the day itself. And you can kind of anecdotally walk around during those professional learning days or, as people are accessing services and you can see what their affect is. You can see what their experience with it is as well in terms of their behavior to some extent. And also, I'm not a clinician. I'm a credentialed teacher, credentialed administrator. My background comes from the classroom. Because the words mental health are in my title, people come and they share things with me, whether it's about, hey, this is going on for me. What do I do? I don't know how to ask this question to anyone else. Or, this is going on with my staff member. Remind me again, what are the resources? How can I frame this conversation? Like, there is a lot of people that have come to me and asked for that type of feedback. So having a person attached to the work also makes a big difference in hearing from people. If there's not always a front-facing human being, it can be hard to feel like your words matter.
Well, yeah, the human being demonstrates that it is a priority, that it's not just something that lives in a dusty document. So yeah, um, those kind of anecdotal experiences, and you, with your background as a teacher, I'm sure you are aware that people will have within a district, say, and probably within a county, kind of ideas about certain schools, certain districts, whether or not they want to teach there. And I
Mhm.
wonder, have you gotten, even anecdotally, like any sense that either schools or school sites that were more, talked about in a negative manner, it's been improved, or disciplinary data even, because I feel like when the staff are well taken care of, a lot of the stressors around classroom management kind of lift, even without a direct intervention on the on the students, when the staff are better taken care of. So I wondered if there are any either anecdotal or formal um, measures of that. And that'll be my last question.
I don't know, besides the data we collect, if there's measures that sites are doing independently. There very well could be. I know the sites that we had opt in to CalHOPE and be focus schools, they made it a priority. And one of them is an elementary school. And that leader, in and of herself, really had a strong sense that wellness is a priority. It has to be a priority, not just for my students, but for my staff and for my families. And she opted in to so much professional learning and resource to see how she could implement effectively at her school site because it was a priority to her. I've also seen it really inhabited and implemented more effectively at a middle school that was really struggling. One of those sites that people don't necessarily want to run to teach to, and very difficult student population in some senses because of the way some middle schools were closed down and put back together in our county. And that leader, her stance, her skill set, the way that she creates a tone for wellness, a calm presence, real resources. Like, leadership can make such a difference in the implementation of things or how people feel about the pieces that are offered, the components that are offered. And I've seen a huge amount of turnaround at that school, the middle school. The elementary school, unfortunately, lost two children, two siblings in a car accident last fall. And so the skill sets that that leader had and the way that they had prioritized wellness for everybody really came into play. So I would say that even if you don't have the structures in place, if you have a leader or a champion for this work that you can make the face or that can really create the culture that you're looking to develop in their interactions, that can make a big difference.
Yeah.
I don't know if that got to your question or not,
Oh,
but
oh no, because I didn't expect the measures to be formal, but this is more of the to me, this kind of data and feedback, like that you can't run through a statistical analysis, is more valuable when you can, some of the things that you were just saying about the interaction between the structure of prioritizing adult SEL and then that leader that also is a champion, that's like a huge it sounds like that has had a really powerful impact. So yeah, thank you for sharing.
yeah, and if you go back to that report, Donnell, the CDI, the Collaborative District Initiative from Castle that I brought up in the first beginning slides, those 6 sustainable SEL implementation elements are shared vision, core SEL district priorities, SEL implementation pathway, promoting adult SEL, engaging educational partners, and communities of practice. So I encourage you to dig in a little bit to that report, and it might touch on a few of the things that you're also questioning.
That's great. Awesome stuff. Great resources and walking it through. I know we had folks kind of come in and change from different breakout rooms. So if you're just joining us in this breakout room, welcome. It is the main room, and we're just having questions and answers with Jill. So if you have a question or a comment, feel free to come off mute and share your lovely voice. All right. Well, we'll continue the conversation. Please feel free to jump in at any time. And I'm thinking, Danielle, your question too is in relationship to the lead of a county office, the role we play at County Office of Eds, and then supporting localized districts. So thinking, Jill, how has your strategic planning and your county's kind of walking the talk helped support your LEAs within Napa County? And what are some of the maybe efforts you're working to help leverage some of that leadership in your county as a county office of ed?
I think that the CalHOPE work with vocal schools made a difference. It allowed the school districts to think really strategically about what they wanted to achieve in a time frame. Often it's my impression that we kind of want to set it and forget it with our SEL programming, not just for youth, but for adults. And we saw a huge upset with the pandemic, with COVID. And so, and as I said, Gallup clearly shows that we've not reached those baseline levels again, pre-pandemic baseline levels for our wellness in the workplace. So I think it has been useful for people to have targeted projects, targeted time, targeted resources to think about what can I do that is sustainable and that I can keep doing in the future and that's even replicable, maybe across my sites. And everyone has to pick their entry point, their starting point, whether it's a certain department or a certain site, or I do not recommend trying to do things with no infrastructure in place with everybody. That's just confusing and your initiatives can lose steam very quickly. And then you've kind of blown the opportunity to build the importance and the impact of the work. So the districts themselves have been able to contextualize it to their district as well. We have two small single school districts, less than 100 kids each. And we have two Up Valley districts that are 1,000, 1,100 each. And then we have a really large district that's 16,000 students. That's like 85% of our ADA. What this looks like for each one of them is completely different. And what they need is completely different. So in reference to your question about COEs, like you've seen one COE, you've seen one COE, right? We all know that saying. It's different everywhere. And so what are the needs that are presented consistently and how do you know if you're not collecting any staff feedback or data, that is important to this process. If you are creating systems and responses to individual programs or individual staff needs, it can really put your energy, in the wrong place. So how do you know what people need and how do you then build conversation with varied partners across your agency to develop what's necessary? People who know capacity and need in their own
Mm.
area of the agency and can then inform a larger group. And the districts needed to do that as well. Smaller districts, it's a challenge because, you have one person doing everything. So we really stepped in and offered a lot of technical assistance and ongoing support. Um, and whether or not it continues, that's really up to them. It's not a system within which we have authority. So again, as a COE.
Exactly. Well, that's great. I think well said, right? The diversity of the county office, the size and economy of size of the districts that you support, And especially in our, smaller counties too, it's also even more challenging because the districts they serve are, proportionately smaller as well, and still expected to provide all those levels of service. But it speaks to even more important about that social emotional mental health and adult emotional learning, how important that is.
Yeah, we have standards for youth, for, student well-being. We have standards around with a framework, the Castle framework. We have standards around mental health education embedded within a health education course. And with health education, you have mental, emotional, social health as a core content area. So
Hmm.
there's some real sense of reference point when you look at youth standards. I think you have to build that for adults. I think that's what makes it more challenging. It's one of the reasons I wanted to create the structure of the tiered supports so that people could really see this is an opt-in and this is, you need to be able to assess where you are and what your needs are. And I think that's an ongoing challenge with adult SEL is are people doing things within their locus of control? Are they getting a good night's sleep? Do they have the opportunity to move? Like you said, we're all in front of our screens all day. Do we have the opportunity for good nutrition, or are we just not packing a lunch and there's a package of cookies on the staff room table? We all know that we have like 2 minutes for our bathroom break sometimes, especially when we're a teacher. So what are the things that we are saying these are non-negotiables for baseline wellness? We don't really have that in place for adults in many systems. And we're not necessarily encouraging people. I know that when, give you one example and then I'll hand it back over to you. Breast Cancer Awareness Month. One of the like little kind of tangential pathways of my work being health education, we do events and focus on certain months during the year. We have breast cancer awareness in October. We do Hispanic Heritage Awareness. We just had our AAPI in May awareness event. We have cultural awareness. And so right now, for mental health awareness, not only did we do a board presentation and have a proclamation with Health and Human Services to declare it Health and Human Services and NCOE declaring Mental Health Awareness Month and reported some of our student data. But we also have my brain just lost it in my brain. Oh, Breast Cancer Awareness Month in October. We've had so many staff members impacted by cancer themselves and their family members, and it impacts programs, it impacts their well-being, it impacts their health if they're the ones that are grappling with that disease. And it impacts our agency, our overall health and our wellness, being when we have staff members we care about, colleagues that we care about that are impacted by this horrible experience. And so when we honor that for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we're also saying, hey, have you had your regular preventative care done this year? We care about everybody's well-being. If you have any questions, if you have someone who's been recently diagnosed, it's kind of like building a community of care within your agency that is a reference point. And so the things that you do that aren't direct, but that are maybe inferential to, oh, we care about our health here. Like, are you caring about your health? Have you been able to take care of yourself today? That is important. Because you can't just always be talking about who needs a counselor. You have to start at tier one and tier two.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. I think that's a beautiful way to use some of the kind of layered approaches of your work, your side responsibilities, but also tie into a way to kind of live your values, right? Lift it up and then validate it. It made me think about where are we as our county finding small pockets of hope, shall I say, with leadership and colleagues trying to witness each other doing things well. One thing we have here at our county office is love notes, living our values every day. So it's like little notes, and one of our leadership team members really took it upon herself to really create a culture around encouraging people to write love notes to each other, and then they'd be turned into her office anonymously, and then the top winners would be celebrated, and then little kind of like gift cards to people that were giving out lots of love notes, just as a way to focus on appreciations. uh, I think those are kind of makes me think about living our values, taking care of each other and ourselves. And yeah, so important.
Yeah, and I think David, just like a strategic plan,
Mm.
we have core values: service, integrity, equity, innovation, recognition, and collaboration. And that recognition piece, having that there really, it's a reference point again for behavior. We have a wins of the month poster that's always up in my office. And then when we have our quarterly department meetings, I peel off the 3 months and I bring them down, and we start our meeting by looking at our wins, picking one we want to talk more about in the department and share out about, and recognition in a visible, tangible sense. So when you have those pieces of policy or language that are baked into your agency as reference points, it makes those conversations uh, just more and more aligned.
Very nice. I love it. Yes, it's so important. And it's the little things, right? Is how do we stay focused on taking care of each other? I know that, team members that I supervise always trying to advocate, take that time. You have the time to take care of yourself, do your medical appointments regularly. One thing I pride and respect our county office is that we do, identify additional time that each team member gets is that they can take towards their doctor or dentist appointments regularly and encouraging people to use it. It's a benefit. If
Yep.
you don't use it, you lose it. And if you don't use it, you're not taking care of yourself. So, it's got to put the mask on ourselves first. And I know I'm not always the best at that. I need to practice that myself because we're always so used to being caregivers and taking care of each other.
Yeah.
So I love your examples and expertise. I'm going to pause there because I know we had a couple other members jump into the meeting into this breakout room, which is our main room. We're just chit-chatting with Jill and highlighting some of her efforts. So if you have a question or a comment you'd like to ask Jill, please come off mute and we'd love to hear your lovely voice.
Jill, I have a question. I hope this doesn't take us too much off topic, but I've been sitting here wondering about the certification that's required for individuals to become certified as wellness coaches. And it seems to me that there's just could be, should be, I think, a tremendous overlap with SEL for adults and the wellness certification process. So I'm wondering if your county office has any experience in terms of pursuing that, or if you know of any programs that do, and if there is some correlation between the two.
So, as I understand the certification process, it's AA or BA for Certified Wellness Coach 1 or 2 with a certain amount of hours. It's about, I think, 1900 for Certified Wellness Coach 1 and 2700 for Certified Wellness Coach 2. And that's the workforce pathway. There's an education pathway as well. I know that our community college is developing a pathway for Certified Wellness Coach education to gain their AA out of their health and human services or their human services pathway. I know that part of their curriculum does include social emotional learning. And I know, for example, one of our certified wellness coaches, we have 36 in our county now. One of our certified wellness coaches here at NCOE is a former teacher, and teacher preparation has SEL baked into the California standards for the teaching profession. So it is, I think, baked into certain programming. Whether or not it's programming that leads to certification would have to meet the HCI requirements for certification. But I'm not sure if I'm getting to your question or not, but yes, it should be part of what people are experiencing. However, certified wellness coaches can come in with an AA or a BA in any area, and it may have occurred in their field experience and not their educational experience.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it makes me think too, kind of to your question, Lindy, and thinking about it'd be also how would we use a certified wellness coach within the adults in the agency, right? So if we have certified wellness coaches to deliver behavior mental health services to the youth, that's been the conversation mostly. It would be how would we use the certified wellness coach to support the social emotional culture of a district or a county office, I think that's a great exploratory conversation, right? If they have that support, that steadfast skill, clarity to support and guide people through decisions, that would be a really nice discovery to see how may that play out to support the culture moving forward.
Hmm. One place that oh gosh, it just went right out of my brain. I think we're getting to that part of the afternoon where I think of something and it just goes
Yeah.
bloop right out.
It's the chocolate hour or your late cup of coffee.
Yeah, I know what I was going to say. So we right now have a certified wellness coach at our early learning center, managing a family center where there's co-located partners from like our community health initiative that supports Medi-Cal enrollment, our COPE Family Center, our COPE Family Services, our community resources for children. They're all co-located there, and he can do staff professional learning, professional development, wellness. He's done some mindfulness activities with the staff. And the other thing that he can do is with early learning and certified wellness coaches. And David, correct me if I'm on the wrong pathway. You too, Gina. I know you hear this too in the office hours. What I understand from HCI is that certified wellness coaches providing services to children ages 0 to 5, it involves their parent. So you are providing direct certified wellness coach services for an adult. So I think that there's ways to bring that certified wellness coach in on some staff wellness activities. I would not necessarily you'd want to differentiate. They're not a clinician. They need to utilize programming. There needs to be something for them to utilize that's curricular based type. And then they could also support adults in terms of the services they provide to those early ages. So there's some avenues for what you're describing, but you have to also think about how you're paying for a certified wellness coach.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like we're thinking through the modality of providing services and reimbursements. But I think you're right. The 0 to 5 model is working through the parent to support change in behavior around parenting skills and supporting children to have that safe emotional space to grow. But we could, if there's advocacy or interest in using their skill set to facilitate adult learning activities, if it's funded by a source that's appropriate, they could be stewards of activities. So it's not necessarily leadership doing the activities or teachers taking turns rotating and doing more, but it could be part of a defined benefit as to facilitate some of their best skills in the adult spaces. I think that would be beautiful.
Yeah.
Because I know that sometimes we find the pressure in leadership. We're always expected to do so much. And it's like, oh, we have a leadership meeting. Okay, who's going to stand up and volunteer? And then you volunteer. And then you're like, oh, you got another 7 hours of planning for a half-day event in June. And you're like, oh my gosh. And then how do you find that time, right?
I will tell you, and I'll just say this as a last thought. Be careful what you wish for. I love my job, but I'm telling you, like 2, 3 years of committee meetings, every time I walked in to co-lead or lead one of those meetings, I was walking out with work. So
Yeah.
I guess it was my job. So having that face for the work is great, but there's only so much, there's a limited capacity. So you have to think about that as well.
Well, that's exactly it, right? There's only so much you can do, and to facilitate all those meetings, it takes a lot of extra effort. But
Yeah.
love your examples, Jill. Your expertise is beautiful, and really appreciate your ability to articulate what you do, why you do it, how you do it, and you make it look easy. We know how
Well,
hard you work, but you make it look easy.
Well, thank you. And it's much in large part due to the advocation and effort to champion this work from my deputy superintendent, Julie McClure, who's fantastic. So that kind of support you can't say enough about. Thanks for the conversation, David, and the
Thank you so
questions.
much. All right. Well, I think it's time for us to do the feedback survey. So I think we're going to go ahead and put it in the chat. If folks could take a couple minutes to do this feedback survey, we would really deeply appreciate it. And then thereafter, we'll jump back in. Folks will be joining us back in this room for our final wrap up. All right, looks like rooms are closing and welcoming everyone back into the large room. If you haven't done so already, please go ahead and save that link for the feedback form. We'd love your feedback. If you haven't taken the time to do it yet, please go ahead and save that link. We'll also send it back out to folks and or take care of it before the end of the day. We'd really appreciate it. Looks like we have a few more rooms are about to close. All right. Looks like everyone's coming back in. All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming right back in. We appreciate everyone being here today and taking a moment to fill out the feedback form and all your engagement. Thank you, Jill, for the amazing presentation today and the discussion. And we know that so many of you are out in other breakout sessions. So this is a chance for some sharing out in the chat. Feel free to type in the chat maybe some of your ahas or high-level takeaways from your breakout room. Maybe you stayed in one breakout room and it was amazing. Maybe you went into two that were just fabulous. Or maybe you stayed with Jill Barnes and I and had a discussion about your social emotional learning for adults. All right. So we have, feel free to go ahead and put that in the chat. It'd be great. We see that we had, there was some sharing from Leslie. They would have loved to have shared more time with you, Leslie. Looks like Patrick would like to connect with you and learn more about what you were talking about. It'd be amazing. All right, let's see if folks would like to go ahead and add that in the chat, add in some high-level takeaways, or if you'd like, we can go ahead and have you share also with your lovely voice.
Sorry, David, I was trying to also fill out the survey. Was that to me?
Well, it was Patrick saying that sorry to
Oh,
miss the last part of what you were saying, Leslie. You were saying
I
something
was just
amazing.
sharing because Patrick asked a great question that as DHCS is evolving and now we're learning more clear definitions around like the larger how within the school framework when we think about tier one universal supports
Hmm.
and we're learning that DHCS's definition is not the same. So how do we, I guess, bring back all the previous messaging that, oh, you could bill against, you could bill for classroom wide push-in lessons. So I was just sharing that with Patrick that fortunately or unfortunately, our LEAs in San Diego are very used to us constantly presenting updates that things are evolving, things are changing. So, Patrick, I was just saying that that's kind of the tune that we're going to end. I wouldn't share it yet until there's more definitive guidance from DHCS. So, hopefully, in summer, with the release of the updated manual, the updated codes, and the crosswalk, medical necessity, all that stuff, then I think we would dedicate time to just kind of bring all the LEAs up to speed on the changes. So that's all I was saying, Patrick.
And so nice to share, Leslie, an example of how important these breakout sessions are. So sharing up-to-date information. Thank you, Patrick, for nudging that. Thank you, Leslie, for coming off mute and sharing. This work is very complex. So if folks would like to share a lifting up topic or something, a jewel that they really appreciated from the breakout sessions, feel free to put it in the chat and or come off mute and share. Well, I know we had a great questions and answer, and I'd like to just appreciate Lindy was asking a great question around social emotional learning and the wellness coaches. What role would wellness coaches possibly take to help support the delivery of social emotional learning with the adults? And great question, Lindy. It got us all thinking. Appreciate that. All right. Well, we'll pause another moment, and I might just sing a song for all of you that you have a moment to think because you're special too. All right. Well, with that, I'd like to go ahead and thank everyone for really joining the learning today, the community practice. As we head off into our afternoon, please share one intentional way that you will practice your adult social emotional learning this week. Maybe through something that you'll be doing alone or taking some time to spend with a friend, perhaps exercise or meditation, practicing a hobby, or resolving a conflict. Please feel free to go ahead and put that into the chat, something that you'd like to do to take care of yourself and or your community or friends. Oh, taking the day off tomorrow. Amanda, I love it. That's beautiful. Reading before bed instead of TV screen time. Oh, I love it. Stepping away from, stepping away from the screens from time to time. Lovely. Reminding myself of what Jill said about practicing what you're modeling with our youth. Oh my goodness, Carissa's taking the next couple days off. She's turning 21. Congratulations, Carissa. Have a lovely 21st birthday. Reading my book of self-compassion. I love it. Going to take a walk this afternoon. We have Liz is going to take a walk. I love it. Shannon's going to visit an alpaca farm. Oh my gosh, how cool is that? We also have, let's see, taking some more time to reflect with gratitude. Lindy, beautiful. Bethany is going to attend a friend's backyard music festival. Oh my goodness, so many good things. Reading some more books and leaning into my creative hobby side. Wonderful. Drusella is going to go to a local show this weekend and tap into creativity. Well, I really appreciate everyone sharing some social emotional sharing. It's beautiful. I hope that carries us through a lovely afternoon and the rest of your week. Be well, everyone. We appreciate you and love you all. Take care.